Okay, I will call a roll to establish who's here, and I'll use volume this time. I am present. Commissioner Killeen, are you here?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, are you here? Alderman Coder, are you here?
I am.
And Commissioner Weber, welcome. Are you here?
Yes.
Have I overlooked a commissioner who's present?
Bathman? Melanie Bathman?
Thank you, Melanie. I see you.
The chair is muted.
Chair is not muted.
Oh, yay.
Okay, I count 6 commissioners present. Is that everybody else's count?
Yes.
Okay, then. Has anybody read the minutes of March the 22nd, 2021? And if so, is there a motion in that regard?
Chairman, Alderman Coder, I've read the minutes. I have one correction to the minutes. They mentioned that, I think it was the only item that was involving the retaining wall that passed unanimously. I abstained on that matter.
Okay,
That would be my only correction.
that is a good correction. I probably abstained as well.
I think you did. With those corrections, I would have moved to approve the minutes as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I'll count that as an aye. Those are our minutes.
I
Commissioners?
abstained, Mr. Chairman. I was not at that meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Weber was not present and is not voting on the approval of the March 22nd Preservation Board minutes. Commissioners, we have no preliminary business today. These are all appeals of staff denials. As usual, we will ask appellants, witnesses, and staff to swear that they're telling the truth, and we'll try to build a complete record for each of these appeals. Let's begin with agenda item A, 2034 Ann Avenue.
Bethany Moore, Cultural Resources Office. I swear to tell the truth.
Proceed.
I would like to enter into the record Ordinance 64689, the enabling ordinance, Ordinance 67175, the Benton Park Neighborhood Association, the Benton Park Ordinance, the agenda, the PowerPoint, this presentation, the applicant's appeal letter, and the Benton Park Neighborhood Association letter, both of which I will be reading after the presentation.
Excuse me, you have the wrong picture up, I believe.
For 2929 Indiana.
Oh, I thought that the chair said we would do Ann Avenue. Sorry.
That was taken off the agenda. So the new it would be 2929 Indiana.
My mistake.
No, actually, it was my mistake. Let's take a look at the agenda. It's 3 items: Indiana, Westminster, and Congress.
Correct.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, David, for figuring that out.
Yes.
I will call agenda item new A, old B, 2929 Indiana Avenue.
Okay. This is an appeal of the director's denial to retain a retaining wall built without a permit at 2929 Indiana Avenue. It is in the Benton Park Local Historic District. Here is a site map of the address. It is on Indiana Avenue to and from Crittenden. Here is a picture of the retaining wall. It is a double-tiered concrete block retaining wall built without a permit located at the front sidewalk and disrupting the historic slope of the front yard. There is no evidence that a retaining wall ever existed at this location. Prior to the installation of the retaining wall, the original slope of the yard was intact. The original wall is roughly 13 feet long and 16 inches tall and constructed of CMU in a red-brown color. the Cultural Resources Office received a Citizen Service Bureau complaint for a retaining wall built without a permit. The property was inspected by Cultural Resources staff and determined that no application for a permit had been received and that the work was in violation of the standards. A letter was sent to the property owner informing them of the violation. Cultural Resources Office staff advised the owner that the project did not comply with the Historic District standards, and the owner applied for a permit, which was then denied by the Cultural Resources Office. The applicant has appealed the denial, and the matter is now before the Preservation Board.
Commission.
So here are some pictures for context. This is looking directly across the street from 2929 Indiana. And then here is looking north along Indiana Avenue. It does show, it's a good example of the uninterrupted historic slope of the yards. As you can see, they are low grade, gentle slopes down to the sidewalk. And in this case, this stretch has been uninterrupted with retaining walls. And then this is, again, across the street, across from 2929 Indiana. This is an example of an unpermitted retaining wall. It looks from Google that it was built around 2018. Again, this did not have a permit. If they had come in and applied for a permit, we would have not been able to approve that permit. And then here is looking further north along Indiana Avenue, across from 2929 Indiana. As you can see, there are some examples of some curbing along the sidewalk, which is something that we would allow, which is just a low curbing to keep some of that yard off of the sidewalk. And again, here is a detail of the retaining wall. I did want to read an excerpt from the standards. Section 401 slope grade says the historic slope of a yard shall not be altered at the public unless it has at some time been altered and it is to be restored to its original configuration. The project at 2929 Indiana does not comply. The historic slope of the yard was intact prior to the installation of the retaining wall. There is no evidence that a historic retaining wall ever existed on this site. The Cultural Resources Office's consideration of the Benton Park Local Historic District standards and the specific criteria for slope and grade led to these preliminary findings. 2929 Indiana Avenue is located in the Benton Park Local Historic District. The retaining wall was built without an approved permit. There is no evidence to suggest that the historic conditions of the yard at the public facade ever included a historic retaining wall. Without evidence of its prior existence, no retaining wall is allowed at this location. Based on these preliminary findings, the Cultural Resources Office recommends that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial of a permit to maintain the retaining wall, as it is not allowed under the Benton Park Local Historic District standards. And now I would like to read the two letters. So this is the letter of appeal from the owner, Greg Wonko. My appeal is as follows. The Benton Park Historic Standard pertaining to installation and material selection of retaining walls should be waived in this case, considering the earnest effort my wife and I have made to preserve and enhance the historic elements of the property at 2929 Indiana. We have restored and are now occupying a property that has sat vacant and condemned for years. We do not do this for a living. We both work full-time jobs. We spent over $100,000 and hundreds of hours of our free time to fix this house up because we enjoy doing it and we love old homes. The wall in question was installed with an obvious sensitivity to the streetscape, and it enhances the historic dialogue of the private dwelling and the street. It does not meet the threshold stated by the city standards for permitting and would be better characterized as a landscaping element rather than a wall. Additionally, there are more concrete paver retaining walls in the neighborhood than any other type of landscaping wall by a large margin. To hold my small, historically insignificant property to such a carelessly composed standard when virtually no other properties in the district are meeting that standard exhibits a blatant disregard for fairness and a total lack of competency on the part of the Crow. This standard is an obvious overreach and does nothing toward the purposes of preservation. It is a cheap attempt to force the modern streetscape to appear old-timey with no regard for economy, scalability, sustainability, or modern material advances. I propose the following immediate revisions. Number 1, the Benton Park Historic Standards section regarding landscaping walls should be removed as it does not serve the purposes of preservation. At a minimum, it should be revised to exempt walls 18 inches or less to match the larger city standards. Number 2, the citations issued for notice of noncompliance should not refer homeowners to the Crow since their office is seemingly powerless to do anything besides reiterate the standard. Number 3, the section of the standard, Part 3, Section 2, that names the Crow as an AHJ in the matter of waiving or interpreting the standard should be removed since that power has never been utilized by the director's own admission. It is obvious that verbiage has been included just to give the impression of fair-mindedness, and any potential exemption is directed through a burdensome and opaque appeals process to the actual AHJ, the Preservation Board. Greg Wonka. And then I also have a letter from the Benton Park Neighborhood Association. Dear Ms. Moore, at the April Benton Park Neighborhood Association Building Review Committee meeting, we met with and reviewed application to retain a low-height concrete block retaining wall installed without building permit at 2929 Indiana Avenue. The BPNA recommends that the wall be lowered by 1 CMU course to comply with the City of St. Louis's limitation of retaining walls less than 18 inches and be regarded as a non-structural wall whereby a building permit is not required. The BRC is in the process of revising the Benton Park Historic District standards and likely will incorporate guideline to permit low-height garden walls / property curbing. Preferably, these low-height walls will be constructed of limestone or brick. However, the guidelines will list acceptable CMU retaining wall material that is random sized and a warm gray color to better emulate rubble limestone foundation walls. Respectfully, Don Morgan.
Questions for Bethany? Commissioners?
Has the Alderman chimed in?
Bethany, did you hear that?
No, I did not.
He wants to know if the Alderman has an opinion.
I have not heard from the Alderman personally, but he is here if he wishes to make a statement.
I see him smiling.
He's listed to speak on another item.
I think I put in there to say a word on this one also.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I don't have that list in front of me, Bethany. Is it in the chat?
No, I have that. I can put it in the chat for you though.
Well, since a question has been asked and the Alderman is sitting here, Dan, do you want to answer it?
Yeah, would you like to swear me in?
Is the testimony you're going to give the truth?
Sure is.
Okay, that'll last till midnight. Proceed.
All right. Yeah, as Bethany mentioned, Mr. Wanko came to our April Building Review Committee meeting. We spoke for hours on what most people would consider a short conversation here of a retaining wall. I think it was the final conclusion of the Building Review Committee that this wasn't, the attractive restoration that Greg and his wife Kelly made on the house. They are owner occupied, so they were not, doing this as a means to flip the property. They are living there and are our neighbors. And I think that as the letter from Don Morgan stated, that this is something that we're going to review as we revise our codes, but kind of specify the fact that, if it were under 18 inches, that it would not have required a building permit. It would never even be in this position right now. So I think the recommendation of just lowering it 1 course to get it below the 18 inches was a fair recommendation. And so I'm going to stick with the neighborhood association and stick with our building review committee and their recommendation to say that, we can allow this if they lower it to below the 18 inches. So that will be my input. Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Yes, Alderman.
Yes.
When will that become official in the Benton Park neighborhood?
We are just trying to get the committee back together to review in the ordinance. It states that we need to review it and update it every 5 years. Since I'm going on my 5th year in office, we are hoping to get it done this year. So it has not been updated yet. We need to put the committee together to review a whole lot of standards.
So I'll ask the chairman, as the new board member, have we ever put a denial on hold in order to wait for this association to really put the rules out?
I don't know that we have, nor do I think necessarily it would be good policy to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, commissioners, any further questions of staff? Okay, the appellant is present, has already had a letter read, but may in fact want to talk again. Do you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, is the testimony going to give the truth?
Yes, it is.
State your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Greg Wonko. I live at 2929 Indiana.
Okay, let's try to complete your record. What would you like to say?
I had sent some things along to Bethany, and I think there we go. So if you guys are all seeing what I'm going to run you through a couple pictures here. The picture on the left is me and my wife standing in the yard in question the day we bought the property. It was burned out and condemned. Unfortunately, this picture did not capture the baseline where the sidewalk's at, but there was a retaining wall in place there. Contrary to what they're saying, there was a railroad tie sort of rotted away at the base, along with some corrugated concrete sort of structure. You'll see another picture of that later on. The picture on the left is one that the CRO opted not to show you, which is the neighbor immediately to my left. They have a concrete retaining wall. This building is obviously not in good shape, and it continues to not be. The building that I bought was heavily dilapidated when I bought it, obviously, and this whole part of the neighborhood is largely non-compliant with the standard. If you could move one slide forward, please. This is just a floor plan of what we did to the house when we bought it. This was all permitted and done by the CRO's standards. We replaced windows, and that was per the CRO standards. This was just to highlight that, this was a large undertaking. What we did, this retaining wall is a very, very small portion of a much larger project that we took on, and we did not even realize that it was something that we needed to comply with. We never were told any of these standards. We just knew somebody in the neighborhood who said, "Oh, you're in a historic district, right?" And so we just asked them what we needed to do. They said we needed to anything that we changed to the outside of the building, we had to get approval for. We didn't recognize that evidently landscaping is part of the building, so that was a misunderstanding, I suppose, on our part. Next slide, please. This is just a picture of what the building looks like before we bought it and today. I think it speaks for it, frankly. Keep going, please. This is another shot. Keep going. And this is the backyard. So obviously this was a fair bit of work that we took on. I would say that we made unquestionable improvements to the neighborhood, and particularly to this property and how it responds to the streets around it. And we've gotten really positive reviews from all of our neighbors. All of the neighbors who are aware that we're being cited for this retaining wall are pretty much shocked that that's happening. I don't think that this standard really represents what most people think of as preservation efforts. Go ahead and go forward, please. So here's some more pictures. On the left, you can see right at the base of the little brick jut out that my steps are at, you can see a little bit of that corrugated concrete still in place. That was wrapped all the way around. So there certainly was a wall there. It was retaining earth. As you can see also from the way that I've excavated the ground right there, this is where I'm beginning to set my wall. You can see that the ground is where I have not disturbed it is above the sidewalk there. So the notion that there wasn't a wall there before, that's just false. And you can look on Google Earth easily to determine that. Go ahead with the next slide. These are just some other retaining walls in the neighborhood. I understand that many of these could have been possibly built prior to the standard, but I mean, I think that these, just so we're clear, these and the next slide, which has a couple more, this is just in one block. This goes up Indiana one block, then down Missouri one block. There are numerous retaining walls just like these. And I don't include the house addresses because I've seen from previous meetings like this that I think CRO is just going to say that they didn't approve those. So I understand that I'm wasting my breath. I just am trying to exhibit how unfair it would be to establish this standard and hold my small property that I made large improvements to and not hold any of these to that standard. Go ahead and go forward. I think actually, yeah, so that there's just more. Go forward one more. I think we're almost done. This one in particular was interesting to me because when my wife and I received the citation, we thought, who in the world is complaining about this stuff? So we went on Nextdoor and we found a bunch of people who complain about a lot of stuff. And then I looked up the person who's complaining, and they have a non-compliant retaining wall in their front yard. This is a picture of that retaining wall. So even the people who are, I suppose, more gung-ho about history and preservation than I am are putting in these walls. So I'm going to reiterate, this standard does not point towards preservation. It's an effort to make things look old-fashioned, and I really don't think that it has any place in your standard at all. Go ahead, one more. I believe that, oh wait, one more, because then I get the good Mies van der Rohe quote. And I recognize the irony of quoting Mies van der Rohe to a 19th century neighborhood preservation board, but I think that what he's saying here probably should be taken into consideration. And as far as the slope to the street, which is, I know, another sticking point here, like I said, there was already a retaining wall there. And I think that the way that it was depicted in their presentation was really unfair. They did not take a picture of the one right next to me, and nor have any of us seen the one on the other side, which also has a retaining wall that is non-compliant. Of the 7 standalone structures on this strip of Indiana, I think 2 of them do not have retaining walls, and they're the 2 that they took a picture of. So I think that's a misrepresentation of what this current standard of the neighborhood is at. And so again, my final appeal is just that I don't believe that you guys should make me remove this because of how much effort I put into preserving this house, and I just think that it would be an unfair starting point if you guys are really going to come down on retaining walls. This isn't the place to do it. So that's it for me.
Commissioners have questions of the appellant?
I couldn't see the Mies van der Rohe quote. Could the appellant read it to us, please?
Sure, it is. We must remember that everything depends on how we use a material, not on the material itself. Each material is only what we make it. I considered also using oh shoot, I forgot the other one. There was another good one. It was a little meaner, but I left it with this one.
Thank you.
Any commissioners have further questions?
Chairman, I guess I have a question, maybe it might be more for cultural resources. Is that appropriate at this time?
Let's conclude the testimony.
Okay.
Do we have anybody else signed up to speak on this?
We do
Okay,
not.
I'm sorry?
We do not.
Okay. Okay, commissioners, this concludes the testimony on this matter. Commissioner Richardson, will you make a motion?
Sorry, I joined late on this one, so I should probably.
That's fair. Commissioner Killeen, will you make a motion?
Yes, sir, I would like to make a motion. I move that the Preservation Board deny this application to retain this retaining wall without a permit, as it does not meet the Benton Park historic standards.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Now discussion. Alderman Coder, you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I just think, I mean, I don't disagree with the motion by Mr. Killeen, but I just think maybe in the preliminary facts and the conclusion, I mean, we've got a photo he took, the applicant took, showing, I guess, some sort of wall there. So, maybe I disagree with the preliminary finding that there's no evidence of a prior existing retaining wall at the location. That was my only comment.
Bethany?
I would say that would be considered a curbing. That is something that we allow. It's, like about this thick. a lot shorter. That is, a curbing is allowed. But from what I saw on Google, it looked like that there was maybe a shrub there, but not a retaining wall. Also, I would like to point out that retaining walls under 18 inches still do require a permit in historic districts, even though they don't require a permit just in the city.
Got it. Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add my reasoning for the motion.
Certainly.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank the owner and his wife for the hard work they put into the neighborhood and for their investment in the city. I think when we look at these retaining walls on streets that have berms, and I'm sure Melanie could speak to this, the historic nature of these berms was actually part of the architecture. I know you don't see it that way, but that's sort of how a lot of these streets were set up, where the berms were uniform and it kind of lifted you up from the street to walk up to your home. So that's actually part of the architecture. Another point you made was you found multiple retaining walls in the neighborhood, and I know that's there too. I'm actually one of your neighbors. One of the reasons these standards were written was to try to remove foreign materials like these concrete block retaining walls from the area so we could actually have that historic look. And you also mentioned that historic standards shouldn't necessarily be taking us back to, look old fashioned. Well, that's actually what they sort of do. We're trying to get the neighborhood to look the way maybe it did during a certain time, its period of significance, and to introduce a lot of modern materials, as Mies van der Rohe maybe would have wanted to do, doesn't really meet the vision that the folks who framed this document have for the neighborhood. And this document was not written by Cultural Resources staff. This was written by your neighbors, some of them who still live in the neighborhood. And they put a lot of thought into this, so they're certainly not arbitrary. So again, thank you for your investment, and that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Any other commissioners have discussion? Okay, then. There is a motion on the floor to deny the appeal. I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Fathman, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Abstain for being late.
Commissioner abstains. Commissioner Weber, your first vote. Do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Alderman Coder, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
The chair abstains. That is 5 yeses, 2 abstentions. The appeal is denied. Thank you, commissioners. Calling agenda item Old C, New B, 5265 Westminster Place.
Bethany Moore, Cultural Resources Office. I swear to tell the truth. I would like to enter into the record Ordinance 64689, the enabling ordinance. Ordinance 56768, the Central West End standards, the agenda, the PowerPoint, this presentation, as well as a letter from the Central West End Committee, which I will read after my presentation. This is 5265 Westminster Place. It is located in the Central West End Local Historic District. This is an appeal of the director's denial to replace a slate roof with asphalt shingles. Here is a picture of the location. It is pretty much in the middle of Westminster Place. Here is a detail of the existing roof. You can see the slate here on the roof and on the dormers. Here is another shot from the sidewalk. As you can see, there are some trees in the way, but that does not block visibility from the street in terms of considered visibility. Even though the trees are in the way, they're not a permanent structure. So it is visible on 3 of the 4 sides. The roof is from the street. Here is part of the application. This is a diagram of the roof that was submitted. It is a mansard roof, and 3 of the 4 sides here are visible from the street. Here is a picture directly across the street from 5265 Westminster Place, just for context. And again, here is looking east along Westminster Place, and then looking west. And here is a picture of the current roof. As you can see, that is the slate. And then this is also a picture of the proposed replacement. It is an Owens Corning duration shingle in the color Storm Cloud. The project at 5265 Westminster Place is to replace an existing slate roof with asphalt shingles. The application was denied as the proposed material does not meet the Central West End standards. The owners have stated that the cost of replacing the roof in slate and/or synthetic slate is cost prohibitive and have asked for the application to be denied so that they might appeal it to the Preservation Board. And it is now before the Preservation Board. I did just want to show these shingles just to let you know that these replicate a wood shake shingle and not a slate shingle. And they are not an approved replacement for original slate roofs. And then this is just two examples of other materials that replicate slate. This is on the left, it is a Da Vinci slate Belfort synthetic slate material. This material has been approved by the Preservation Board in the past as a replacement for actual slate roofs, but it did have to come to the Preservation Board for approval. And then on the right, this is a GAF slate line. This is a architectural shingle that replicates more closely the dimensions of a slate shingle. As you can see, it's more uniform and it is a medium gray color. And the shape of the shingles itself doesn't have that kick out at the bottom like the duration shingles do that replicate the wood shake. And the owner did submit 2 additional bids. I do not actually have the cost of the Owens Corning duration shingle, but the owner is here and hopefully he could speak to that. I don't have that information, but he did give me information for replacing the roof with the Da Vinci slate and replacing the roof with actual slate. These bids are both from John Beal Roofing, and the original bid for the duration shingle was also from John Beal Roofing. I would just like to read the section of the standards that pertain to roofs. It's a little bit long, but I wanted to read it in its full context and then point out the relevant section. This is number 7, roofs. The visible form of the roof, as in its shape and pitch, in the presence or absence of dormers and other roof elements, shall not be altered. Materials used on historic pitched roofs and dormers in the historic district are slate, terracotta mission tile, copper, and turn metal. Original or existing slate, tile, and metal roofs shall be preserved through repair and maintenance. Original or historic roof material shall not be replaced with another type of historic material that would change the character of the roof, i.e. replacing the historic ceramic tiles with slate shingles. Photographic evidence shall be provided of the deteriorated condition of roofing materials to justify the replacement. Original or historic roofing material shall be used wherever the roof is visible. Materials that replicate the original may be used if the original or historic material is unavailable and the substitute material is approved by the Cultural Resources Office. Skylights shall not be introduced in existing roofs where visible from the sidewalk or street. Existing historic skylights should be restored or replaced in kind. Removal of non-historic modern skylights that are visible from the sidewalk or street is encouraged. The project does not comply. Asphalt shingles do not replicate the appearance of the historic slate on the roof and dormers. And then I would just like to point out the relevant sections. Original or existing slate, tile, and metal roofs shall be preserved through repair and maintenance. And then also the section, original or historic roofing material shall be used wherever the roof is visible. Materials that replicate the original shall be used if the original or historic material is unavailable and the substitute material is approved by the Cultural Resources Office. The Cultural Resources Office's consideration of the Central West End Local Historic District standards and the specific criteria for roofs led to these preliminary findings. 5265 Westminster Place is located in the Central West End Local Historic District. The roof has existing slate shingles. Existing slate shingled roofs shall be preserved through repair and maintenance. Original or historic roofing material shall be used wherever the roof is visible. Asphalt shingles are not a substitute material approved by the Cultural Resources Office to replace existing slate roofs. Based on these preliminary findings, the Cultural Resources Office recommends that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial of a permit to replace an existing slate roof with asphalt shingles, as such replacement is not allowed under the Central West End Local Historic District standards. And then I do have, I was emailed this excerpt from the Central West End Planning and Development Committee's last meeting. This is pertaining to 5265 Westminster Place. The committee considered Cultural Resources Office's denial of a permit application to replace an existing slate roof at the referenced address with asphalt shingles. The denial is the subject of an appeal filed by the property owners, which is to be heard by the Preservation Board at its upcoming meeting on April 26th. Crow staff advised that it has proposed the use of an approved slate substitute product, IG, EcoStar, or Da Vinci, but with the property owner has claimed that the cost of such material is prohibitive. Discussion included the observation that the competitive bids for asphalt versus slate substitute shingles were presented by a single bidder/contractor, and that additional proposals could be obtained to ensure that pricing is competitive. It is generally recognized that the ongoing revitalization and appeal of the Central West End is attributable in large part to its rich architectural heritage, a legacy from its earliest days more than a century ago. Preservation of that legacy is in the interest of the entire community, and as such, it becomes the responsibility of each property owner to adhere to the historic district standards, which, in this instance, expressly prohibit the proposed replacement of existing slate with asphalt shingles. Accordingly, the committee concluded that it supports Crow's denial and strongly recommends that the Preservation Board uphold that determination.
Thank you very much. Does that complete your presentation?
It does.
Commissioners, questions of Bethany?
Chairman, can we just go back to the two bids? I think there's a slide with those.
Oh, I may be going the wrong way.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Is the appellant present? Yes, I see you.
Yes.
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Chairman.
So would you please state your name and your address?
Sure. My name is John Mark Hongs. I'm the property owner at the property located at 5265 Westminster Place.
Mr. Hongs, is your testimony going to be the truth?
It is. It will be, yes.
Proceed then and build your record.
Thank you very much. Commissioners and aldermen, thank you for your time this afternoon. My request really is a matter of urgency and feasibility. At this point, we've exhausted our avenues. I'm a small business owner. I don't have a lot of resources at this point to be able to replace my current roof with a slate or the Da Vinci substitute, or even the GAF slate line. We've explored all these opportunities with my roofer. I've submitted my financial documents to Ms. Moore to establish this fact. I've even, and this is something that I think I've mentioned to Ms. Moore, but it's not reflected in any of the documents, but I've sought financing to replace this roof, obviously, and I've tried a couple of different sources, but at this time, unfortunately, both of those requests were denied. I do have enough to be able to pay for the roof, but I don't have enough in the foreseeable future, commissioners, to replace the roof with either the GAF slate line, the Da Vinci, or of course the slate. It's just so far beyond my reach that I can't even begin to consider them. The condition, and I do want to mention, the condition is rapidly deteriorating. If you've taken a look at the pictures that was submitted by the board, you'll see the roof is actually in very bad shape. A roof, of course, is part of a system. There are holes in the roof which need to be repaired. I've asked the roofer to see if they could just be patched. They cannot. It's an issue with the underlayment as well as the construction of the roof. So the entire roof does need to be repaired. Now, these holes currently are affecting other interior elements of the house. And so it is a matter of urgency as well as financial ability. Ms. Moore, can I ask you to please advance the other submissions and the slides that I've provided to you? Thank you very much. Now, commissioners, these are from the actual Preservation Board's report itself. I've used the primary photos that they've included in the report. This is one of the very first photos, and it relates to the property right across the street at 5266 Westminster Place. And as you'll see here, this is clearly an asphalt roof. And in fact, if any of the commissioners should just out of curiosity desire to do so, if you were to run down my block of 5200 Westminster Place, you'll see that that there are, I think, 2 houses that are currently slated. All the rest of the roofs have been replaced with asphalt shingle. Now, of course, I can't speak as to why an exemption was made in those prior instances, but I think hopefully that my circumstances speak for themselves. Ms. Moore, can I have you advance to the next slide, please? This is another street across a property across the subject property at 5272 Westminster Place. You'll also see here that this is not a slate roof. This is asphalt shingle. The detail here may be a little bit too small to see here, but none of the houses, commissioners, that I'm showing you in these photos have the GAF slate line. They are all the shaker style shingles that have been denied. Ms. Moore, if I could have you, in a couple more of these photos, it'll become even clearer as to what I'm saying. This is another property right across the street, which also utilizes the asphalt instead of the slate. If I could have you advance the next slide, please. Thank you. As you'll see from here, this is the house right next door to mine on the eastern side of my property. Originally, these houses were actually constructed at the same time, I understand, by the same developer. The house next to mine had its slate roof replaced many years ago, even before I owned my property. They clearly replaced it with the asphalt shingle, and you'll see from here that they've used the shaker style shingle as opposed to the GFA slate line. Again, all the other properties which I've taken a photo to and submitted to you today, commissioners, have similar shingles. Again, the shaker style shingles. Ms. Moore, if I could have you advance to the next slide, please. This is also my next door neighbor. You can also see that this is also an asphalt shingle roof, which has been replaced. This is also not a GAF asphalt roofing material. This is also shaker style material. I believe this is the last photo. Oh, I have one more, Ms. Moore, if you could advance one more slide. This is 2 doors down from my property, commissioners, to 5275. You also see here that they employ the shaker style shingles, and it is also asphalt. At the end of the day, commissioners, I don't mean to thwart or in any way disrespect the efforts behind the Central West End's preservation efforts, but my current circumstances are prohibitive in terms of my financial ability to replace the roof with any of the materials that have been suggested by the board or even the neighborhood preservation district. And at this point, if I'm unable to replace my roof, commissioners, I'm afraid for the structural stability of the rest of the property. I really quite do need to get something done. I've submitted my financials as well. I don't know if it'd be appropriate to share here, but Ms. Moore, I'm authorizing you to please go ahead and feel free to distribute those documents to the commissioners should they request them. Please, if you have any questions, I'll answer them now.
Just for clarity's sake, Ms. Moore, I instruct you as chair not to distribute that on this Zoom meeting. Okay, questions for the appellant?
What is the bid for the roof that you can afford?
It is for 20, and I'm sorry, Ms. Moore, I gave that to you, but give me just 1 second, please, Commissioner. I do have that information. The price of the roof that I'm paying, and this is before taxes, Commissioner, is $19,000.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Have you, I'm sure you've been asked this, but have you looked into the historic tax credit program to help defer the costs?
Are you asking me, sir?
Yes.
I have not. I didn't even know that that was an option. But I wonder at this point if it would really even matter given the urgency of this matter. Do you? I think that the timeframes involved might defeat the purpose of this request. And even with the, I don't know anything about the historic tax credit, but if you'll see the cost as a slate, it well exceeds 100,000. Even if I were to get the 50% tax credit for that, that well exceeds my ability to pay for the roof, even under those circumstances, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I could, Mr. Hongs, how long have you and your wife owned this property?
We've owned this property since late 2004, Alderman.
Okay.
Oh, and thank you for mentioning that. If I may just add a bit. So the roof on the property appears to be the original roof. And it's lasted, the house was built in 1904. So it certainly, when it was initially constructed, was a really solid roof. Apparently over the many years since then, the homeowners have attempted to do some spot and patch repairs. That's evidenced by different color slate, not necessarily in the photos that you've been presented here with the report, but on the sides of the house, you'll notice that clearly some patches need to be replaced. But based on the roofer's latest assessment and my insurer's latest assessment of the roof, this is not something that can simply be patched up and repaired. It must be an entire roof replacement.
Further questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I have a question. So the financial information that you submitted to staff, is that an accurate representation then of your financial wherewithal and ability?
It is, Commissioner. Thank you for the question. Now, the financial statements that I provided to the board is actually the most recent statements that I could get, and they do accurately reflect my current financial ability.
Commissioner Richardson, was that it?
One more. So do you have a mortgage on the property?
I do.
That's it.
Commissioner Richardson, thank you also for mentioning that. I think I may have briefly mentioned this, but this obviously impacts my mortgage as well because it impacts my insurance. I'm hoping that the commissioners will see fit to approve my request. And I will also say that if the commission wants to make a conclusion or ruling to say that any subsequent roof must be replaced with slate, certainly I won't oppose that. My preference obviously is to go with a slate. It looks so much nicer. Anybody with the financial ability to do so, I think would clearly prefer the slate. But unfortunately, it's just the circumstances that prohibit me from doing so.
Mr. Hongs, is there anything else you'd like to add for the record?
I don't know if I have anything else at this time, Mr. Chair, but I can certainly answer any remaining questions if there are any.
I don't see any further questions. Bethany, is there anything you'd like to add for the record?
I would. I did just want to let the board know that I did review the addresses that are listed in Mr. Hong's presentation from my pictures. And we do not have a permit for any of those roofs to be replaced, except for one at 5272. That one was replaced in 2017, and it was not a slate roof that it replaced. And then also the roof that was replaced at there was another one that was replaced where it was the porch roof, and that was actually a board decision. That one was done without a permit, and the board allowed them to keep that. It was not replacing slate as well.
Commissioners, if I may just add one more thing. Ms. Moore has been, in my mind, extremely helpful. And I understand, of course, that it's her job to ask the board to deny my request because she has a job to do and guidelines to follow. But I do want to say that I did follow up on her many suggestions, which were very helpful. And I think they helped me actually to focus and narrow my options, which is what I've presented to the commission today.
Thank you, Mr. Hongs. Thank you, Bethany. Is there anybody signed up to speak, Bethany?
There's none.
Okay, that completes the testimony in this matter. I will ask for a motion. Commissioner Richardson, you were here for all of this one. Have you got a motion?
Yes, I move that the Preservation Board overturn the director's denial of the application to replace the original slate roof with asphalt shingles on the basis of a hardship variance.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Richardson, would you like to explain your motion?
I think the applicant has shown his financials, and based on the difference in price, I think that a hardship variance is warranted. And then again, it does appear that there are a lot of non-slate shingles on the street. So I think that also weighs on my decision.
Does any other commissioner wish to speak to the motion?
Mr. Chairman, my only question is, if an applicant is allowed to put a shingle roof on, do we impose a time limit on that to make sure it really gets done?
There is a lifespan to a building permit.
Okay, if that's sufficient, fine. Otherwise, I'd ask for a friendly amendment to put a time frame so that if this motion were to pass, that the homeowner would in fact know he or she or them have to do this.
I would note that Mr. Hongs presented testimony that pretty much indicated his urgency about this. I imagined buckets around his living room.
Okay, thank you.
But I would also note to the motion that he has owned the home for quite a while, and the roof did not suddenly deteriorate. It is possible that he did not anticipate this day, or that he did, and that his financial situation changed. Commissioners will decide that when they vote on the motion. Anybody else have anything to add, commissioners? Okay, then.
This is not about the material, but about the color. The thing that the roof that he submitted that looked like shakes were multicolored. Is that right? Or could they go back to the beginning? I think. Well, that one, the storm cloud. Can we make it all a uniform color? Would that help the situation a little bit? We don't.
May I speak, Mr. Chair?
Let me see what Bethany's got to say first.
The Cultural Resources Office approves roofs in a medium gray slate color. So it would need to be uniform.
But how about the storm cloud, that design? Is that, the one that we're looking at now, that's light gray, dark gray, medium gray?
The multicolor is not something that we approve.
Okay, do we have a picture of something that we could approve, or we'll just trust you to take care of it, okay?
I think that's up to you guys in your motion to state that.
Mr. Hans, did you want to add something?
Yes, Commissioner. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Commissioners, the color of the shingle is not paramount for me. We only selected this one because it appeared to be closest to what already, just in terms of pattern and the variation in shade of the gray, is kind of what is already on the roof, which is the only reason why we selected this. Now, I have no objection to making changing the order to a uniform color if that's what the commission requires.
Thank you, Mr. Hongs. Commissioner Richardson, did you have anything to change in your motion?
Yes, I'd like to amend my motion that the color of the asphalt shingles be approved by the Cultural Resource Office staff.
Who seconded that motion before?
I will
did.
now.
Second.
Okay, so it's been twice seconded. That's at least a fourth. Commissioners, there is a motion on the floor. The motion on the floor is to uphold the appeal with the condition that CRO approve the new color. The reason for the appeal is a demonstrated financial hardship. Does that state it fairly, Barb?
Yes.
Okay, then, that is the motion on which we will vote. To uphold the appeal, Alderman Coder, do you vote yes or no?
To uphold the appeal, I vote aye. Yes. No, wait, sorry,
Yes.
I'm distracted. I'm voting in favor of Mr. Richardson's motion to overturn the appeal, so that's a no, right?
No.
No.
I believe the motion was to uphold the appeal.
No. The motion
What is the
was-
motion?
The motion was to overturn the staff's denial.
Which is to uphold the appeal.
Sorry, I vote yes to uphold the appeal to overturn the staff's denial.
Commissioner Weber, do you vote yes or no?
I vote yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Fathman, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, I count 6 yeses. The chair abstains from the vote. The appeal is upheld. And for clarification, the staff order is overturned. Thank you, commissioners, for that. Let's look at agenda item Old D, New C, Congress, Salena, Senate, and Sidney Streets.
Chairman, point of order on this one. I'm going to be recusing myself and abstaining on this matter.
Okay, Alderman Coder recuses himself from this discussion. Proceed.
All right. Bethany Moore, Cultural Resources Office. I swear to tell the truth. I would like to enter into the record Ordinance 64689, the enabling ordinance, Ordinance 67175, the Benton Park ordinance, the agenda, the PowerPoint, this presentation, a letter of appeal from the applicant, and a letter from the Benton Park Neighborhood Association, both of which I will read after the presentation. This is a large project. This agenda item includes various addresses on Congress, Salena, Sidney, and Senate streets. This is an appeal of the director's denial to retain 604 non-compliant vinyl multi-light windows replaced without a permit on 25 residential buildings. It is in the Benton Park Local Historic District, and all 25 buildings are part of the Senate Square Apartments complex. Here is a map of the buildings in the Benton Park Local Historic District. The ones that are that salmon color are the 25 buildings where windows have been replaced without a permit. Cultural Resources Office staff did go out to every single building and document every single window that was replaced. And that's how we know that there were 604 windows, and each address we wrote down total windows replaced, total windows, and then the required compliance for each address. And before we go on, I would just like to read a little bit of history on this, this project. On July 1st, 2019, the Cultural Resources Office staff received a complaint that windows were being installed without a permit at a number of buildings in the Senate Square development located in the Benton Park Local Historic District. Cultural Resources Office placed multiple stop work orders on the properties on July 1st, 2019, and on May 8th and 20th of 2020. The two stop work orders issued on May of 2020 were in reference to dormer work going on without a permit in violation of existing stop work orders for the window violations. The window violations were referred to court on November 8th, 2019, after the owner failed to appear before the Preservation Board for a preliminary review of the project in July of 2019 and was unresponsive to the stop work orders. It has been in the court process since then. At the last arraignment, the judge informed the owner's counsel that in order to continue the court process, the owner must apply for permits. He did so and was informed that the Cultural Resources Office could not approve the permit applications as the windows did not comply with the Benton Park Local Historic District standards. The owner has appealed the denials and the matter is now before the Preservation Board. In all, there are 25 buildings which have had windows replaced and for which non-compliant windows have been purchased but not yet installed. Upon Cultural Resources Office inspection, the total number of windows installed without a permit was 604. Of the 604 windows installed without a permit, 197 windows were determined to be in violation of the Benton Park standards for windows on public and semi-public facades. I do have a lot of pictures that I'm going to show, but first I would like to read a little bit from the standards. I do have it in my write-up. It's a lot, but I would like to read it to the board so that you are aware. Section 203, windows. 203.1, windows at public facades. Windows in public facades shall be one of the following: the existing window repaired and retained, a replacement window which duplicates the original and meets the following requirements. Replacement windows or sashes shall be made of wood or finished aluminum. This project does not comply. The new windows are vinyl. The profiles of muntins, sashes, frames, and moldings shall match the original elements in dimension and configuration. Again, this project does not comply. The replacement windows do not replicate historic sash in any dimension or profile. The number of lights, their arrangement, size, and proportion shall match the original elements in dimension and configuration. Again, does not comply. The new windows have false muntin grids set between the panes and do not replicate historic muntins in either dimension or profile. In addition, small panes of glass were used in some very early St. Louis buildings and became popular much later in the 20th century colonial revival designs, but would never have been used in these late 19th century buildings. The method of opening shall be the same as the original with the following exception: double hung windows may be changed to single hung. The project partly complies. Most of the original windows were double hung, as are the replacement windows, but a number of them were arched. These have been replaced with smaller double hung windows below a fixed semicircular light. While single hung windows are allowed under the standards, they must duplicate the original proportions of a historic window. On at least one example, tall double hung windows were replaced with the window that had a noticeably smaller bottom sash. Reconstructed windows and sashes in a public facade shall be based on the following: an adjacent existing window in the same facade which is original, or if all windows on a facade are being replaced, then they shall be based on a model example or the window detailed in. The original windows in these buildings were replaced with non-compliant aluminum windows in the later 1970s and 1980s, when Benton Park had not yet been designated as a local historic district. However, the historic brick molds were all retained. In the new installation, the brick mold has been wrapped. Section 203.2 covers windows at semi-public facades. Windows at semi-public facades shall comply with all the restrictions outlined in 203.1, except as noted herein. Replacement windows in semi-public facades, materials. Replacement windows may be constructed of the following materials: wood, vinyl coated wood, or finished, painted or otherwise coated with color. Aluminum, clear anodized aluminum is prohibited. The project does not comply. The windows are vinyl. Configuration. The profiles of muntins, sashes, frames, and moldings shall match the original elements in dimension and configuration. The number of lights may be reduced to 1/1. Square head replacement windows may replace original arched head windows where the apex of the arch is less than 6 inches above its base. However, the arch shall be maintained with the decorative element of wood, finished metal, or plastic which appears as wood. The project does not comply. False multi-light windows have been installed on the side elevations as well. Brick molding. In all cases, the original brick molding shall be retained or duplicated. Again, the project does not comply. The original brick mold, which was extant, has been wrapped and its profile lost. Now I would just like to show some pictures of the buildings. Again, I would like to reiterate that there were 604 replaced, but only 197 on the front and on the public and semi-public facade do not meet the standards. Again, these are not pictures of every single building, but it's enough to give the board an idea. We do have pictures of every single building, and we did do a survey of every single building, which is included in the chart. This is 1913 to 15 Congress Street. As you can see in the picture on the right from a Google image from 2019, the replacement windows were still intact from a previous replacement. And then in the picture on the left side, those are the new windows that were put in without a permit. As you can see, they are vinyl and they have the interior grid pattern. And here is just a close-up of that window. As you can see, here's an example of one of the windows that had an arched top sash that was replaced with a fixed semicircular window and then a double hung window underneath. And again, it's vinyl. And in here is 1921-23 Congress, a before and after. 1931 to 33 Congress, again, another before and after. And as you can see, the two windows in the middle, again, should have had a arched top sash, and they were replaced with a fixed semicircular window over a double hung window. This is 1903 Senate. Here's an example of a building where the windows were not replaced on this front portion, but they were on this bump out, which would then have to comply with the standards. So these windows are again a violation, and they do not fit the opening correctly either. Same thing with this building, 1905 Senate. Again, windows on the street facing bump out, and they do not fit the opening. And then here's another building, 1909 to 11 Senate. This one had windows replaced at the rear. And then a before and after of 1916 Senate. And here is a good example of a wrapping of the brick mold. You can see in the picture of the new windows on the left that the brick mold has been wrapped. It's very white in comparison to the eyebrow. And then here are two more buildings, 1921-23 Senate, 1927-29 Senate. Those had windows either replaced on the back or on the sides. And then again, 1928 to 30 Senate, another one with windows on the back. 1931 to 33 Senate, here is a before and after. And then some additional buildings with the windows were not replaced on the front. And then a before and after of 1941 Senate. And then this is 1941. This is, let me see if that's the same. Yeah, so this is a close-up of 1941 Senate. And here is a close-up of the replacement windows. You can again see the wrapping of the brick mold and the vinyl windows and the false mutton grid in the interior. And again, they didn't replicate the original window, which would have had a segmental arch. And here is 1943 to 45 Senate, a before and after. And here's an example of one of those taller windows that was replaced with uneven sash. The top sash is much larger than the bottom sash. Again, another before and after of 1948 Senate. And this is 1910 to 12 Sidney. This replacement was stopped halfway through when we put the stop work order on the buildings. And then 1919 to 21 Senate, or Sidney. 1930 to 32 Sidney, and then 1944 to 48 Sidney had not been replaced on the front. And then 1950 to 52 Sidney, before and after. And then the 3 on Salena. All right, the Cultural Resources Office's consideration of the criteria for windows in the Benton Park Historic District standards led to these preliminary findings. The 25 buildings that received or are proposed to receive replacement windows are all located within the boundaries of the Benton Park Local Historic District. 197 of the 604 replacement windows installed do not comply with the requirements of the Benton Park standards for public and semi-public facades in material, profile, configuration, and exterior trim. 407 of the 604 replacement windows installed are on private facades and are approvable under the standards. All of the 604 window replacements were done without an approved permit. Based on the preliminary findings, the Cultural Resources Office recommends that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial of the window replacements, as the windows do not comply with the Benton Park Historic District standards, and that the applicant be instructed to revise applications to replace non-compliant public and semi-public windows with compliant windows and approve non-street visible windows. Any additional work should be permitted separately. And then I do have 2 letters I would like to read. I have a letter of appeal from the applicant. To whom it may concern, I'm writing on behalf of Senate Square Apartments. Recently, we were cited by the Cultural Resources Office for the replacement of our windows due to the fact that the replacement windows were not compliant with the historic code of Benton Park. We would like to appeal this decision on a variety of issues. First, Senate Square Apartments is a business, and as such, the requirement that we only use historic windows creates an extreme economic hardship. The cost to install windows as specified by the Cultural Resources Office for just the fronts of the buildings would be approximately 5 times the cost of installing the windows as we requested. The city ordinance creating this historic district and CRO clearly provides for this exemption for businesses, precisely like Senate Square Apartments. We believe that this point is the most powerful argument in favor of granting Senate Square this appeal. Secondly, the ordinance creating this CRO has also allows for a section of property within the historically designated area to be removed from the historic district if that entity comprises a large section of the district. Senate Square Apartments is an apartment community that comprises 25 buildings in the Benton Park neighborhood on 4 streets in a very compact area that encompasses the streets of Sidney, Senate, Congress, and Salena streets. We hereby request that our approval for a hardship exemption of this requirement is not granted, then we request to be removed entirely from the historic district and such requirements. Thirdly, while the CRO finds it necessary to file suit against the Senate Square Apartments for failure to abide by the CRO requirements on windows, the CRO has been given information by our council of no less than 25 other buildings in the area that have windows exactly as we wish to install, and the CRO has taken no action against these property owners. Senate Square feels that they have been singled out for unequal enforcement and will seek all legal remedies in this matter if necessary. Fourthly, if Senate Square Apartments is forced to install only those windows as mandated by the CRO, it will be impossible for this property to maintain the current rent structure and resident base without substantially increasing rents and thus displacing most, if not all, of our current residents. Senate Square may have to seek more favorable pricing and a fixed income stream through subsidized housing and a resident base of Section 8 tenants. Since ownership has acquired this property in 1996, millions of dollars have been invested in these buildings to fix all of the deferred maintenance and upkeep present at that time. Senate Square continues to invest heavily in this property, and all of our efforts have only made this section of the Benton Park neighborhood a very beautiful and stable part of the city. We humbly request that our variance be granted and that Senate Square Apartments be allowed to install those windows as requested by the reasons cited above. Please give this matter careful consideration as we take our investments in this property very seriously. Thank you, sincerely, Malachi Ives, General Manager, Bowman Property Company. And then I do have a letter from the Benton Park Neighborhood Association. Dear Ms. Moore, this letter states the position of Benton Park Neighborhood Association of not supporting the actions of Bowman Properties of egregiously violating the Benton Park Historic District standards. Attempts made in 2019 by Benton Park Neighborhood Association Building Review Committee, once the window replacement work started, to advise that building permit was necessary were ignored. In over 30 years, the Building Review Committee has never seen such a willful violation take place in the Benton Park neighborhood. While the original Senate Square apartment ownership trailblazed these blocks of Benton Park neighborhood in the early 1980s, the current ownership, Bowman Properties, appears to have little regard for the historic neighborhood, let alone complying with City of St. Louis building code. The Benton Park Neighborhood Association recommends the non-compliant windows be replaced with historically compliant windows and brick molding be restored or replaced to match historic profile. Respectfully, Don Morgan, President.
Does that conclude your presentation?
It does. The chair is muted.
Questions for staff? Commissioner Richardson?
Yeah, did they submit any materials related to their request for a variance, a hardship variance?
Just the letter that I read into the record.
Okay, so none.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, is the appellant present?
Yes.
Where is the appellant?
Randall Reinker on behalf of the appellant, and also Malachi Ives, who's the representative of the appellant.
Okay. State your name for the record, please.
Randall Reinker,
Your address.
2016 South Big Bend.
Will your testimony be the truth?
I'm sorry, repeat that, please.
Will your testimony be the truth?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Proceed.
All right, so I'm an attorney and I represent commercial and residential landlords throughout Missouri and Illinois, and ostensibly Mr. Ballman's companies, he does the same thing. He manages properties throughout Missouri and Illinois. Specifically, he's in the affordable housing business, and that's what he does. Many times he's asked to take problem properties, fix them up so that people have a place to live. At many of these Senate Square apartments, the rent is as little as $650 a month or even less. I can tell you that many of my clients in the Soulard area or downtown are probably 2 or 3 times that amount. If my client's required to replace these windows with a more expensive window, then that, as his letter states, will outprice many of these people and make it difficult for this property to survive. Our client's contention is also that the windows that have been placed in these units, their technology has outstripped the need for maintaining historical standards. I've looked at the ordinances, the one that was mentioned, 67175, as well as 24.20.090, and there is the authority and the ability to grant a variance and or waiver when it makes it beneficial to obtain to make a profit. So on behalf of our client, that's what we're asking for.
Is there more to your presentation? Is there anything else you'd like to introduce for the record?
There isn't. Are there any questions for the representative?
Okay.
I have a question. So in the letter from the neighborhood, their development, it said that this started in 2019. Can you elaborate on that?
Is the question posed to whom?
It's posed to you. So the letter from the neighborhood, the development committee, it mentioned that they started talking to you all back in 2019, and now we're in 2021. And so it sounds like maybe you started the discussion before you put any of the windows in, and then despite knowing that you needed to get a permit, you went ahead and did it? Or help me understand what happened in 2019 that is, approximately, at least a year and a half, if not 2 years ago.
I'll ask Mr. Ives to answer that question.
I believe our project started in
Mr. Ives, before
2000.
you begin, would you please state your name?
Malachi Ives.
And
My address is 217 Clarkson Executive Park.
will your testimony be the truth?
It will be.
Proceed.
I believe our window project started in 2019. I'm not sure that we received anything at that point asking us to stop installing the windows. I know this process has been going on for quite a while, though. Unfortunately, I don't have the specifics from 2019 right here in front of me. I'm sorry.
And you didn't understand in 2019 that you needed a permit to put these in?
We had started putting them in without permits.
And then did you continue that process, or when did you stop?
I believe we stopped when we got a stop work order.
And when was that?
I don't recall the specific date. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Further questions, Commissioner Richardson?
No.
Any other commissioners have questions for the appellant? Bethany, who's signed up to speak?
Sorry, I was having some mouse issues. The only people who were assigned up to speak have already spoken, Malachi Ives and then Randall Reinecker on behalf of the owner.
Okay. Alderman
Oh,
Gunther?
and, excuse me, Dan Gunther. I
Alderman-
apologize.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one more question of the appellant,
Who's speaking?
Richardson?
Please.
Oh, so what's the average size of a unit?
They vary. We have all sorts of different floor plans from 1 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms. I think our smallest one's probably around 600 to 650 square feet.
So okay, so then the average is approximately what?
It's hard to give you an average. All of our buildings have a different floor plan in them.
Thank you.
I guess I have one more question for Mr. Ives. Why did you think you could do this without a permit?
I don't have a good answer for that. I'm sorry. I was doing as the owner instructed and we installed the windows. We found out later that we needed a permit.
So at that point in time, when you found out later, why didn't you stop and apply for a permit?
I'm willing to consider that a rhetorical question.
Okay.
Further questions for which there might be answers? Alderman Gunther, proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you everyone from the board for listening to this. Quite the appeal here. As it was stated in the Cultural Resources overview of this project, I think it says July 1st of 2019 was the first report of windows being replaced in the Senate Square apartments. July 1st, Cultural Resources put a stop work order on this project and let the property owners know that not only did they have to apply for a permit to replace windows, but they also had to abide by the standards of the neighborhood association. As a member of the Benton Park Neighborhood Association's Building Review Committee, I know that there were attempts to contact the Ballman properties and the Sidney Street properties to let them know that these are things that our neighborhood building review committee reviews and then gives suggestions or makes kind of makes a case for or against for the preservation board. As it was also stated in there, there's 604 windows that were replaced. 197 of them are with outside of our standards, outside of what we have written down. And so back in July of 2019, when we said this was you were going about this the wrong way, stop, they continued to replace windows. So I don't feel that, there was any good cause of the property owner to actually take a break and apply for a permit or abide by the rules that the neighborhood has set. So So I don't think there's a whole lot to be said about this appeal here because it was, as it was written in the neighborhood association's letter, that it was pretty much just a flagrant heck with you guys, we're going to do what we want. And that is absolutely kind of the feeling that everyone in the neighborhood association, everyone that is a homeowner that abides by these rules, a single person that has to replace their windows, their front windows with wood windows and replace the brick mold, and not wrap everything with vinyl or put vinyl windows in, or wrap them with aluminum or put vinyl windows in. This is really just kind of a slap to everyone that has to abide by these rules. And for this, for the company to say that they have an excuse because they're a company, I don't feel like that's a very good argument here, because we have a whole lot of people that buy properties, rent them, and put them in an LLC's name. And so if we're going to follow a rule that says if you're a company, you don't have to follow our neighborhood standards, then we pretty much throw all of our standards out, because a company, more than anyone, should be following the rules that have been written for the neighborhood. So again, July 1st of 2019, we recognized what was going on. And here we are in 2021, and we have 197 windows replaced without a permit or without following the standards of the neighborhood. So that's all I'm going to say about this one. But I think there could have been a whole lot less windows that you guys would have to replace if you would have listened in 2019. So I'll leave it at that. Any questions, I would take them.
Questions for the alderman? I hear none. This concludes our testimony in this matter. I'm sorry, Bethany, did you want to add something to complete your record?
I did. I did just want to clarify, although Mr. Gunther included it as well, that we did place our first stop work order on July 1st of 2019. That stop work order was placed with multiple addresses. I did actually have to go back and put a stop work order on every single individual address. So those have also been placed. And then also they were supposed to come before the Preservation Board on a preliminary review in 2019 as well, and they failed to show up. So they have been well informed of this violation since 2019.
Thank you. That completes the record for both parties. Commissioner Richardson, have you got a motion?
I move that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial as the windows do not comply with the Benton Park Historic District standards, and direct the applicant to replace the non-compliant front and side windows with approved historic replacements, and find that no evidence of an economic hardship was presented.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I think the alderman summarized it well. I mean, we don't have a separate variance process for businesses. And like I said in the motion, there was no evidence that was presented by the attorney or the applicant that they didn't present any financial information to support any kind of hardship. And it does seem like a flagrant violation of it. I also would note that I found their letter offensive, that they were threatening that they would have to make this subsidized housing or Section 8 housing, because I would note for the record that neither of those types of housing are offensive in any way.
Further discussion?
That was not meant to be offensive. The Senate Square was originally a Section 8 property when we took it over.
Okay, we're not going to actually debate this.
I'm
Further
not
discussion,
debating.
Commissioners? Hearing none. There is a motion on the floor that has been made and seconded. It is, in summary, to deny the appeal and to uphold the ruling of the CRO. I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Fathman, do you vote yes or no on the motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no on the motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no on the motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no on the motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber, do you vote yes or no on the motion?
Yes.
The chair votes yes on this motion also. Commissioners, that is 6 yeses. There are no noes. The appeal is denied. Thank you very much for your time. Bethany, thank you very much for your presentations. Okay, commissioners, there is a listed director's report, but I don't know if our director has left for Philadelphia or not. If he has not, it is certainly our chance to wish him well in his new job and to thank him for his service in this one. Is there a director's report?
Of sorts, there is a director's report, Mr. Chairman. I want to just mention a couple of sort of ongoing issues that I think will be coming to the board eventually, though not tonight. The first of those is 5200 Cates Avenue denial of an appeal of a denial, I guess I should say, in the Sherman Academy neighborhood. This was on the preliminary agenda 2 meetings ago. The applicants have chosen to defer, which is completely within their rights and isn't prejudicial in any way. But that's one that I think you all will see in an upcoming meeting. Additionally, I have some initial indications that there may be some new construction proposals on the sites of 2 significant MCM buildings around town, both in the Central West End, almost across the street from one another. The Engineers Club building, which is in the 18th Ward in the Central West End, and the Optimist Club building, which is in the 17th Ward on the south side of Lindell in the Central West End. So we haven't even begun to engage the developers yet of those. So those are items that I think will be particularly noteworthy in the near future. With that, I really just wanted to take a moment to thank you all as a committee. I've been the executive director of another government agency and the executive director of 2 nonprofits with boards, and those were wonderful boards with wonderful people. But this is, I have to say, I wasn't sure what to expect. I hadn't been to a lot of preservation board meetings when I took this position. And I've just been so impressed with the level of deliberation that goes on this board, the level of passion and interest and thoughtfulness that you all bring to what you do. I'll admit I've gotten some pain in the neck questions because I hadn't anticipated them in presenting items to you all. And I think that it really has been, really, I respect the public process, and I really think you all do too. And I appreciate that everyone has been treated, in my opinion, with objectivity and fairness by the board. Additionally, I wanted to thank Richard. I'm going to miss our agenda prep meetings because I feel like I learned way more about how the city works from you than you learned about what was coming up at the Preservation Board meeting from me. And I also wanted to just state that I think virtually every member of the board, I have consulted one or you, all of you at least once or twice, if not more, and you've given your time generously when there were preservation questions that were beyond the scope of the expertise of the staff. We're not developers, we're not rehabbers, we're not realtors, we're not real estate brokers, we're not any of those things. So the willingness of you board members to give your advice and your wisdom on items that aren't related to the actual board hearings and give of your time has been very, very appreciated. And additionally, I wanted to say that I appreciate Barb and all your passion and all the work you've done to help keep us going in the right direction, because we're not lawyers either. So I also just want to take a moment, since we're in a public setting here, to thank my staff, or the staff, Jan, Andy, Bethany, and Deneen, who's been great to work with, and also in absentia, Bob and Adana, who aren't here tonight, but who really were wonderful to work with as well. Great neighborhood people work in the preservation field here in St. Louis, people like Suzanne Sessions, Jay Reeves, Jay Gibbs, Rocco, Dana, Catherine Smith, and Tim Mulligan. And I'm sure I'm missing a few people here. Additionally, Mike, I appreciate that you really helped out with Mike Colleen with the project over on Morgan Ford and in the Bevo neighborhood. When with your help, we managed only to lose a small building at the rear of a structure instead of losing a whole commercial structure at a corner. Additionally, Tony Robinson, you've come out to multiple buildings with me and looked and told me whether you thought they had rehab potential. That's been wonderful. And also, I just wanted to mention Sean Spencer, Yusuf Scoggin, Naeem Gray, and Andre Alexander, who are all doing amazing work to get rehabs done in our city and to ensure that there's folks out there who can assist preservation staff if we need to see if maybe someone could take on a building that an owner doesn't want to take on but might be willing to work with us on a demolition. So with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's helped in my tenure here, and I've really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to maintaining my relationships with all of you in the future.
Director Krasnov, thank you very much on behalf of the board and your city. Please maintain your St. Louis sports allegiances and alliances. If we hear of you cheering for any Philadelphia teams, we will share your secrets with your new employer.
The only Philadelphia team I will commit to rooting for possibly is the 76ers.
That's fair. That is fair. Okay, commissioners, that concludes what we have on our agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. Hearing no objections, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck, Dan.
Thanks,
Talk to you.
everybody.
Good luck. Good luck.